great weekend that we had this weekend at our Generations Conference. If you were there, can you give it up for our weekend? It was awesome. It was awesome, and God met us, and it was just a powerful weekend with worship and amazing ministry from Sharon Glasgow from Proverbs 31 Ministries. I mean, she had us laughing and crying, and it was awesome all at the same time, and it was just a powerful, powerful weekend. And I always realize and understand that Mother's Day weekends can be so difficult for so many different reasons. And we're going to talk about seasons this morning, the seasons of our lives and the things that we walk through as mothers. But I recognize that there are women who've always wanted to be mothers that are not mothers in the physical, but that may be mothers in the spiritual this morning. And I realize that there are women that are represented here today who have lost your mother, maybe lost your grandmother. And so I always pause to recognize that I understand that Mother's Day can be one of the more difficult holidays to celebrate. Being away from my mother most every Mother's Day after we got married for almost 30 years, it's his fault. It's his fault. But, you know, just the ability and the technology that we have to be able to even FaceTime this morning and me wish her a happy Mother's Day and confess that I am that daughter that forgot to send the card that I bought 2 weeks ago, but it will get in the mail this coming week. I've already told her that. But understand that I realize and know how difficult this weekend can be, and so my heart and my sentiments always go out to you, and know that you are never far from the Father's heart. You know, we talk a lot about Mother's Day, we celebrate you, we celebrate our time together, but you know, we don't talk about our mother-in-laws a lot.
My. Look out.
And there might be a reason for that, right? There might be a reason for that. But I want to read you just a few.
What would that reason be?
Well,
I mean, come on now.
I'll go back to that in just a minute. So here are some things that moms would never say. Now, when I read this, I had to laugh, Jessica, because I thought, you know, my kids would probably say I would say these things. And the more that I seemed to have children, the more that I was like, yeah, I could see that I would say these things. How on earth can you see the TV sitting so far back? These are things moms would never say. Yep, I used to skip school a lot too. And my kids love to hear all the dirty stories, you know, like all the really bad stories about their mom. Let me smell that shirt. Yep, it's good for another week. Yeah, I have said that. I have said that before.
Not a week, though.
Not
Come
a week,
on,
but a day. Okay, we can get through this. We can get through this for another day. Go ahead and keep that stray dog, honey. I'll be glad to feed and walk him every day.
Come on. How many of you know it's the truth? We want a puppy, and then you end up raising the puppy. Come on now. Y'all know it's the truth.
And Tony and Cindy brought their puppy this morning. Yes.
So did Jay. He's over here somewhere. I saw Jay. Yep.
Well, if Timmy's mom says it's okay, that's good enough for me.
No.
I might have said that, Marley, about you. If Marley said it's okay, then it's okay. The curfew is just a general time to shoot for. It's not like I'm running a prison around here.
Not true. Not true.
This is definitely true for me. I don't have a tissue with me. Just use your sleeve. Don't bother wearing a jacket. The wind chill is bound to improve. Those are definitely things that a mother would not say, although there might be some moms that are represented in those statements. Are any of you those moms?
Come on.
Okay, that's okay. True confessions this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, we're going to talk about this morning a mother, but she was actually a mother-in-law. Remember, I said a lot of the times we don't hear the stories about mother-in-laws. In fact, I have worked very diligently to not be that mother-in-law. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Which is called a mother-in-outlaw.
Yes,
what we would call
I have
that.
tried, Karen, very hard to be that mother in love. I want to be that mother in love to my two daughters. I know whenever Thomas got married to Ivy, she was the best thing that ever happened to him. And when Zeke got married to Ashlyn, it was one of the best things that ever happened to Ezekiel. And so I feel so fortunate to have gained such amazing women in my life that I, in this short time, have already learned from. But we're going to look at a story yet again, and if you have remotely been listening to me talk to the generations, you understand that our theme has been all about faithfulness, the faithfulness of God, and those things that He's looking for in our lives. But it goes a step further. It's not just about our faithfulness, which counts for everything according to Matthew. It tells us that He's going to look at us one day, like I heard that speaker say last weekend at both Zeke and Jimmy's graduation, well done. I can only imagine what the Father's words, well done, my good and faithful servant, is going to sound like because of the result, not only of my faithfulness, but of the fruitfulness that happens because of my faithfulness.
That's awesome. And let me say this about faithfulness. You're not faithful so everybody else can trumpet your faithfulness. You're faithful when God is the only one that sees you being faithful. And I can guarantee you this. I've lived long enough now, I can guarantee you this. In the end, God is going to reward and honor your faithfulness. Can somebody say amen? He's going to reward and honor that. So, mamas, Mother's Day does not just speak to mamas. Now, here's the deal that connects us all to Mother's Day. We all have one. How many of you have a mama? Come on now. So, but it speaks to women and men. Mother's Day speaks to women and men. It speaks to mothers and women who are not mothers. I loved what Laura said, that you may not be a biological mother, but God uses many women to be spiritual mothers and to bring spiritual truth into the lives of others. It also speaks to mothers of growing children and to mothers of grown children. How many of you have growing children? Let me see your hand. Wait till they get 14. They eat everything in the house. And eventually they will eat you if they can't find enough food to eat. How many of you are mothers of grown children? It speaks to mothers with husbands and mothers without husbands. It speaks to mothers with positive relationships with their children and mothers who have strained relationships with their children. And it also speaks to hope for grieving mothers. Now, this morning, I'm only going to speak a little bit. Laura's going to do the majority of this. She's carrying the water today. But we want to go to the book of Ruth. It is a powerful story tucked away in the Old Testament, but there's so much power in this story. And in this story, there is a mother and a mother-in-law named Naomi. And Naomi is a powerful figure here in the Old Testament, but she shows us, not just women, but all of us, how we can face and walk through the different seasons of life. She is faithful in all seasons. Everybody say all seasons. It's easy to be faithful when things are going great. It is not easy to be faithful when things are not going great. There is another person in this story named Ruth. Everybody say Ruth. Ruth is a daughter-in-law, which makes Naomi a mother-in-law. The story has application for everybody, and the story obviously speaks of all the seasons. The first one, Naomi speaks to us about the season of summer. Everybody say summer. How many of you are summer people? Let me see your hand. Woo! Yes! We'll get to the rest of you in a moment. I got the dog worked up over here. Summer is an amazing season if you like heat, and you like things to be hot, and you love air condition, and you like sunshine. The problem with summer in Naomi's time period is summer was often accompanied with famine. Everybody say famine. We think we have it hot here, and we do, and sometimes it's hotter than other times, but I'm telling you, in Bethlehem, where Naomi lived with her family, summer would often mean drought, it would often mean thirst, it would often mean famine. And when we pick this story up in Ruth chapter 1, we learn that there is a famine hitting the land. Things are dry, things are tough, resources are minimal, and there is a lack of water. How many of y'all like water? Now, we've had two of the wettest seasons back to back, but now it's kind of dry. Like all of a sudden, we didn't have a lot of rain in April, but now things dried up a little bit. We haven't had a lot of rain in May, except the other day it rained a ton. But dry and dryness is one thing in the natural, but it's another thing in the spirit. Naomi arises in this moment out of her thirst. Everybody say thirst. Now, she's married and she has 2 sons. They are thirsty. It is amazing to me when we are thirsty in the natural what we will do to get a drink of water. I used to work on a tobacco farm. There were no spigots. Y'all know what a spigot is? We didn't call them faucets. We called them spigots. Everybody, okay, faucet is French, faucet. I just made that up. I have no idea if it's French or not. We had a spigot. That's probably French. No, it's too harsh. We had a spigot, but there were no spigots in the field. And so we were working our hind ends off, hotter than Hades out there, sweating, nasty. Tobacco is some of the hardest stuff. It sticks to you and pulls your hair off your arms, and there's nothing you can do about it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? If you've ever done, you wear a long sleeve shirt in 98-degree weather to keep your skin intact. And I would remember being so thirsty, and I would keep watching my clock to see when the break. We had a break at 10 and a break at 2. That meant a nab and water. How many of y'all know what a nab is? All right, come on, somebody. A nab and water at 10, maybe a Coke if you were lucky, and a nab and water at 2. And that was the extent of the water because we were busy. So I kind of know a little bit about thirst, but this thirst is ongoing. Now, in this time period, judges are ruling the land, not kings. Judges are in charge of the Jewish people. And here's the problem. This is about the end of a 400-year period. Let that sink in. 400 years where judges have ruled the Jewish people. The problem with that in this time period is a lot of politics, if this sounds familiar. A lot of politics and a lot of immorality has thrown the nation in chaos. And basically everyone was doing whatever they felt was right in their own eyes. Everybody say my own eyes. So the society is morally bankrupt and in chaos, and to make matters worse, now we've got a famine. It is here that we find Naomi, her husband, and her 2 young boys. They are struggling. They are struggling to live. They are struggling for resources. They are struggling for water. And we find them in this place. Now, I want to say this to you today. We're going to walk through every one of these seasons in our life, whether we're a man or whether we're a woman. You may be in this season right now, this season of summer. You may feel low on resources. COVID may have taken a lot out of you, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and it may have taken a lot out of you physically. You may be at a place where you believe that there is never going to be change or a brighter future for you. Perhaps this summer season has squeezed you, and you're experiencing a spiritual famine. I want you to know the words of Jesus in the New Testament when he talks about wells and he talks about water. He declares that if you drink from my well, you will never thirst again. Come on, somebody, let's give him praise. I would say in the house, but in the parking lot. And perhaps even some of you have something severe that has transpired in your life or is transpiring in your life right now, and you can't move past it. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe you're struggling in a capacity and you can't get past it. This is where Naomi is in her life. She is smack dab in the middle of the summer season. It's hot, it's dry, it is wearisome, it is difficult, it is draining. Decisions have to be made, and fear is lurking. But make no mistake about it, the summer season will not last forever. Can somebody say amen?
You know, I think about Naomi and the decisions that lay before her and her husband at that point of what they would have to do in order to keep their boys alive. I've preached the message of the widow before, and how desperate she was to keep her children from going into slavery. And again, I think about the desperation of Naomi and what she was having to do in order to be able to even leave her people in Bethlehem to go to Moab to find food. Bethlehem was called the city of bread. And so what happened was she had to leave the city of bread because guess what? There was no bread in Bethlehem. And so they had to move their entire family. And so from summer, they moved into the season of fall. Now, fall is my favorite season. It's one of the favorite things. I'm a summer girl. I like beach therapy is what I call it. It's very much cheaper than other types of therapy. But as we go into fall, I always love fall because of the brisk nights, the pots of chili that I love to make, the soups. I'm a soup person. So going into the fall, you have those wonderful things. But Naomi found herself going from summer to fall. And obviously we know fall is a time that we see the trees change. We see the season change. And Naomi finds herself having to relocate her family in this season. And so the grain floors are empty. And again, there's no bread. And so Naomi and her husband in Ruth chapter 1, verse 2, Elimelech, they actually move their family to Moab so he can find work. This would have been modern day Jordan. If you were to look on the map, this would be where Jordan is now. And this is the city whose King Balak had tried to diligently get the people of God to curse Israel through the prophet Balaam. It's not perceived as a great city. In fact, Moab was looked at as less than. And there had to be the real possibility that Naomi wonders if her children would be seduced by the idols and the false faith in Moab. Now, obviously, if you are a mother in here this morning and even a spiritual mother, you know the desperation, especially when your children have gone what I call prodigal on you. Whenever they have begun to stray and they have begun to entertain things, entertain people, entertain circumstances, entertain jobs, entertain those things that you are worried about. You're afraid that they would set themselves up in a situation that would not be beneficial. And so I would say that this fall season is not necessarily a season that's full of fairness, but life's not fair, right? We understand that having lived enough of a life here right now, no matter if you are 25 years old or 75 years old, you are now understanding the seasons of life. And in this season, Naomi finds that she has jumped from the frying pan literally into the fire. This season is a season full of uncertainty, a season full of anxiety, a season full of fear. Boy, does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar to the seasons that we have been dealing with? Yeah. I mean, when we first started the COVID season, we thought it was going to be like for what? 2 weeks.
Yes. Y'all remember that? Like, okay, this will be over in like a few weeks.
And then it went into 2 months. And literally, I sat there. I remember standing in my house in September or August with Angela Harvey working on something for Generations. And I looked at her and I was like, surely we're not going to be talking about this, you know, like in October or November. And we still were.
We still are.
There was still an uncertainty of the season. There was still that fear, still that anxiety.
Well, and let me back up for just a second. One of the things that you can do as a parent, and I'm not going to try to tell you how to parent. I don't tell people how to raise their children. But you need to teach little Johnny and little Jilly that life is not fair. Come on now. Just because the family down the road allows their children to do whatever they want to do or allows them to go wherever they want to go, it is not a right for your child to flow that way. Come on now. And so as parents, we have to keep the authority there. And it's a real balancing that, because your children are not going to like you periods of times. Judah, do not blow that horn right now, young man. Because right now, as you're raising your children, they are not called to be your friend. They need you to help them know what the right path is. Because if you don't talk to them about it, there is a professor waiting for them, or there is someone else waiting for them to give them a truth for them to embrace. And so, Naomi here, there's another aspect of this that I need you to understand. The Moabites were not well liked by the Jews because of Balaam. Remember the story? Balaam tried to get them to curse, and when they opened their mouths, all they did was bless. Everybody say bless. And he got in trouble with the king because the king had paid him up front. Moses had issued a curse on the Moabites for 10 generations. They were not allowed to come into the assembly of the Jewish people. Now, check this out. Naomi is in the 10th generation of that curse. That curse is about to lift. You need to keep that thought in mind, because there is something powerful that is about to happen in this book. But then after fall comes winter. I've shared this with you before, but how many of you, winter is your favorite season? Let me see your hand. My Lord, there's very few and far between. God bless you. Just God bless you. Like, I'll never forget living in Michigan. Winter started in early August, and it did not end until late May. People were moving. They did not stop. They did not talk. They were not friendly. It was too cold to be friendly on the street.
In fact, I remember my very first Mother's Day.
Yes.
Thomas was not even, he had just turned 1.
Mm-hmm.
And Glenn was in Detroit at a Promise Keepers conference. Remember Promise Keepers?
Mm-hmm.
And Glenn was in Detroit at a Promise Keepers conference.
Praying for Jesus to help us.
And I was at my house. We had just moved into our brand new house to us. And I called him and I said,
True.
Where in the world have you moved me?
She literally said this on the phone.
I was like, you have
No, I'm over here praying in the spirit at Promise Keeper, swaying in the wind.
You know, I was like, what have you done to us? It is Mother's Day and it's snowing outside. I cannot even take my child outside to be able to play because it's freezing. I would be swimming if I was in Alabama right now.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And then one of the things that would crack me up is, and you may be this way, you may love winter. I do not particularly like winter in and of itself. I don't like not being able to get outside and just do what I want to do and not have to worry about putting 16 layers of clothes on. I know everybody loves snow, but if you move to the north for one winter season, you will not like snow ever again. It's not white and pretty and melt within 6 hours of a 3/4 of an inch here that shuts everything down in North Carolina. I'll never forget the youth going, "We love winter!" I'm like, are you out of your ever-loving mind? Yes, they loved it. They wanted it. They loved the snow. We learned to endure it because I will tell you this, when June, July, and August hit, the church attendance dropped in half. It's just a true story. Everybody was gone. Everybody left because they knew in just a few short days that it was coming back. Winter is a season that things can get worse. Everybody say worse. It's cold, and the green is gone. The grass is brown, and the trees lose their life. In this winter season with Naomi, she's gone from summer, thirst, dying, relocating to Moab, which is under a curse, into winter. In this winter season, she loses her husband. He dies. 10 years later, she loses both of her sons. They both die. I would call this a winter season. Her sons, before they die, they do marry Moabite women. This was her fear. This was her concern that her sons would marry into this. And here's the kicker. She has no grandchildren. Her sons marry, they die, and she has no grandchildren. She is literally stripped of her identity. She is stripped of those that would care and love for her. It is one thing to lose your husband, but then when you lose your kids, or she only had 2 kids, in that process, this is a lonely, dark, depressing time for Naomi. Ruth 1:5, but Mahlon and Chilion, those are her 2 sons, also died. And Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. The winter season, I want you to watch this. You may be in a winter season right now. It can create a culture of bitterness. Everybody say bitterness. I'm mad. I'm upset. Everybody else seems to be doing good. We're struggling. I'm upset because this isn't happening, or the things that I've asked God for, they are not coming about, or I'm not seeing answers to my prayers, or I'm not seeing this, or I'm not seeing this. It got so bad for Naomi, she changed her name. She said, I will no longer be called Naomi. My name is Mara. Everybody say Mara. Do you know what that means? Bitter. Everybody say bitter. She changed her name from Naomi to bitter. In verse 13, would you wait until they grew up? Listen to her. Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me. She believed God had turned against her. But there's a powerful moment in this winter season. Now, I want you to know that I can trace this to COVID. COVID has been a winter season in a lot of ways, but it's also been a season where truth and what we're very passionate about has been identified. But in this winter season, Naomi pushes her daughters-in-laws and say, you need to go, you need to leave, you need to go get married. You're young and you can do life. One of the daughters-in-law hugs her, they weep, and she leaves. But there is one that is so close to Naomi, she says, I will not leave you. I will go with you. I will go with you back to Bethlehem, your home. Her name is Ruth. Everybody say Ruth. Now, Ruth is a Moabite woman. She is not Jewish. What did I just tell you? That Naomi is in the 10th generation. Moabites cannot come to Bethlehem until the 10th generation. God has a plan here. Everybody say plan. You're about to see this plan in the spring season because it's going to light a fire. It should light a fire under you. While we're struggling with bitterness and frustration and the darkness and the difficulty of the winter season, here's what we've got to remember. God is still working even when we cannot see it or feel it. Can we give him praise? Come on now. He is still working. And he's working in this moment. Because when Ruth refuses to leave Naomi, she goes back with her to Bethlehem. But in this winter season, you're going to be tested. Your faith is going to be tested. Your courage is going to be tested. I'll pause there and tell you, as a leader, and I believe a mantle of influence, I have not been tested more in my life than I have been in the last year to 14 months. Never have I been tested in this way as a pastor and as a leader. It will test your courage. It will try to overwhelm you. The winter season will work to become your identity. The identity of the winter season is I am bitter. Somebody needs to hear this right now because you're going to have to let that bitterness go. Everybody say, let it go. You've got to let it go so you can experience the next season, which is a season where you can let it grow. You can let something new grow. You cannot let something new grow in your life if you do not let go of something that has been painful and difficult for you. Can somebody say amen? You'll see how good everyone is doing and you're not doing good in the winter season. You'll question whether God still loves you. You'll wonder if God has forgotten you. And your joy may turn to mourning and weeping. But I want you to remember something, and somebody's in this season right now. I feel it in my spirit. There are two things I want you to remember. God is always with you. Can you say that with me? God is always with me. Say it again. And I want you to know that there will be a friend or two that will stick close to your side in your winter season. You want to find out who your real friends are? It's not during the spring season. Everybody likes to be around when things are going great. Your real friends are the ones that stick by you and go with you through the fire. And that's what Naomi learned about Ruth, because Ruth was there with her in the fire.
You know, so many times I have thought about these words that one of my precious spiritual mothers and pastor's wife said to me as a young pastor's wife. Laurie, you have a choice to be bitter or better.
Say that, bitter or better.
Bitter or better.
Say it again. Better
and
sounds
so
better
many
than bitter.
times I have had to walk through the let it go a scenario, the let it go winter season, so that I could allow things to grow in my life that needed to grow based on the fact that I needed to grow. You never stop learning. You never stop growing in your life. As long as you have breath, there is an ability, there is an opportunity for us to learn. And I can't imagine Naomi, who renamed herself bitter, what type of even atmosphere or personality that she threw off to other people. I mean, do you know what I mean?
Snarly. Come on,
I
somebody.
say you've been around bitter people.
Oh, my.
Do you know what a bitter person talks like and acts like and sounds like? And sometimes, let me just say, even what they smell like. I can smell them before they even get to me sometimes. And so I don't want to be that person. I want to be the better person. And so I can't even imagine what Ruth, how she aligned herself with Naomi.
Yep.
She must have truly loved and saw the absolute good in Naomi, because Naomi was at a place of complete desperation and complete, probably where she couldn't even think that she had a hope. But as Naomi traveled back to Bethlehem and took Ruth with her, she established her homestead there again. And the season of spring began to make its appearance in Naomi's life through Ruth. Why? Because as Ruth began to find a plot of land just down the road, Naomi said, Ruth, that is some of our relatives down the road. Go there, go behind the harvesters, and pick up what's left so that we will at least have something to eat. And so Ruth did what her very bitter mother-in-law asked her to do, and she stayed behind the harvesters, and she picked up these extra pieces of grain, and she would bring it back. And every time that she would go to that plot of land to get that food for that week, I have to believe that there was a little bit of hope that sprang in Naomi's heart every single week that she came back. And she was reminded of the faithfulness of God because of Him providing food for them to live. And as she was going behind the harvesters, Boaz took notice of her. I'm telling you, there are things that people notice about us before we even walk into the room. Actually, they probably smell us before they we walk into the room.
Hopefully it's a good smell.
But there is definitely something that happens when someone walks into a room or a space that is walking with the favor of God. And I have to believe that Ruth was walking with the favor of God because Boaz noticed her in the middle of the field and said, who is this woman that is following behind the harvesters? And the harvester said, Boaz, that is your relative. She is your far-off relative's daughter-in-law, and she has followed her mother-in-law here back to Bethlehem. And Boaz said, make sure you take care of her. Make sure you take care of her. So when Ruth came home and said, hey, I got extra grain this week. For some reason, the owner of this field has given me favor, and I have extra grain. I have to believe, as a seasoned mother-in-law, she went,
Yep.
Something
She
must
knew.
be happening.
She knew.
Something must be happening. I feel like something is happening. Hope is coming my way. The
Yes.
spring season is coming my way. And she begins to formulate a plan. You know how mothers do. You know how mother-in-laws do. We have our little plan in our head, Bernice. We go, okay, we might be able to work out a situation here. I'm a fixer at heart. And so, like maybe, just maybe, this might be the scenario that changes the future of my family. And so, long story short, Boaz ends up being the kinsman redeemer
Yes.
that marries Ruth. And can you imagine what Naomi, because Naomi tells Ruth, go to, he's harvesting barley. Go to his room, uncover his feet, and lay at the end of his, the bed on the floor. And when he wakes up, you tell him who you are. And so whenever this happens, he realizes, okay, there might be an opportunity for me to take this woman as my wife.
Come
and
on.
that's what happens.
Wow.
Ruth ends up marrying Boaz. They have a child. They have a son. And what happens as part of this process is that son is the father to Obed. Obed is the father to Jesse. And who is Jesse? Jesse is the father of
David.
David.
Come on now.
A Moabite
Watch
woman
this. Watch
is
this.
the beginning. This shows us how the Gentiles, all of us, are able to be grafted into the vine
It's beautiful.
by marrying into
Whoa.
Boaz's family. What hope for us. What hope for the unbelievers.
Yes.
What
Yes.
hope for the future of this amazing family. Can you imagine how Naomi felt? In fact, the women, it says there in the scripture in Ruth chapter 4 that the women said, finally, Naomi, you have a son.
Yeah.
And I said to Glenn, I was like, that wasn't her son. She didn't have that baby. Ruth had that baby. Naomi didn't have that baby. But then the Holy Spirit reminded me, you know how, me having boys, 3 boys, I really wanted a girl to add to
She
my
did.
family. And so it took, obviously, Thomas and Zeke adding those girls to my family. I remember how I felt that I had a girl, but I remember even more how I felt when Ivy had our first granddaughter.
Yes.
And I thought to myself,
Baby
I
boo-boo.
finally have a girl.
Yes.
Now, she is obviously not my girl. She is Thomas and Ivy's girl, but I remember how I felt that, oh my goodness, I finally get to put a bow in her hair. I finally
Because
get
I
to
wouldn't
have
let her put
that.
boys in my boys' hairs.
No,
No,
he
I wasn't
only
having
allowed me to dress them in smocked outfits until they were 6 months old, Bethany.
Was
That's
that
it.
what that was
He
called?
had
What's a
limit.
smock outfit? I don't
the
even know what
people
a
that
smock
know,
outfit
they
is.
know. The
She
women
did it
that
when I
know-
did not see it.
The women that know. But understanding the hope that Ruth brought to Naomi through not only her marriage to Boaz, but
Yes.
through the son that they brought to Naomi and said, this is now your
Yes.
son.
Yes, and laid him in her lap. And the Bible says she cared, accepted, and cared for him as if he was her own. Now watch this. Ruth is not blood related to Naomi. She's not related to her at all, other than she married in. Everybody say married in. So basically, she's grafted into the family of Naomi, Ruth is, but she is not blood related. However, the Bible calls Naomi the great grandmother of Obed, when in reality, she's not blood related at all. The child laid in her lap, now you need to understand this, has no genetic, biological relation to Naomi. 0. But through that boy, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to end with this if I can get the band to come up here. Through that boy, if you trace the line all the way to Jesus, everybody say Jesus. This is huge. That incredible story and that moment of summer, fall, winter, and spring, you and I get to live in the power of that spring moment. And that spring season for Naomi, even though she's not blood related, it was as if it was her son. And through that, this is so powerful. Remember I told you the Moabites were cursed? Everybody say cursed. They are not cursed any longer. In fact, you will trace all the way through the line of Jesus and you will find the Moabite woman named Ruth. Isn't it powerful that Boaz's name is kinsman redeemer? Everybody say kinsman redeemer. Who did he redeem? Well, he redeemed Ruth, but what he really did, he redeemed Naomi. I can only imagine the joy and the strength in her heart. Would you stand with me today? Can we give all of our mothers a hand? Because there's a ton of them here. All of our mamas, all of our mama-in-laws. You say it. Come on now.
As we stand and Tammy begins to play, I believe that this response this morning is not just for our mothers, that it is also for the fathers.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe even some teenagers that's here this afternoon. That's right. It's morning. It's still morning. It's only 11:15. That there are some things in your life that you need to let go.
Yes.
You need to let go of some bitterness, let go of some hurt, so that you can let the good soil grow the things in your life that need to be grown.
Yes.
If you consistently hold on to those bitter places, and in all honesty, many of you have every reason not to let it go. You have had a horrible year. Many of you have. We know it. We've seen it. We've watched you endure. But we have watched you endure it with amazing strength, amazing supernatural power. And the Holy Spirit is prompting you this morning to let it go. Let it go. Whatever it is that you are holding on to, I'm telling you, that's the things that you will take with you if you don't let it go. And it will affect the generation after generation after generation.
Absolutely.
Your bitterness will affect the generations that are coming after you. And so as we begin to sing, I want you to think about that thing that you're holding.
Yeah. Amen.
Maybe it's a person.
Yes.
Maybe it's an offense that you have got to let go.
Yes.
Maybe it's something that you didn't ask for and that was completely out of your control.
I love this because Naomi changed her name to bitter and the Lord redeemed her. But you will take bitterness to the grave with you. If you are not careful, you will take that anger and that bitterness with you. What has it done? I've heard people say, I will never let it go, or I will never. I'm like, man alive. Then you stop living, truly living the moment that you won't let it go. The moment that you cannot just walk away from that. Somebody in this parking lot needs to let something go. I've had to let some things go. I'm a human being. Everybody say human. We're all human. We got to let it go. Let's declare praise right now. If you need to let something go, just let it go. Stop letting it sit on your shoulder or be your best friend. Let it go.
Yeah, spring is coming.
Yes.